Today we're going to talk about espresso. We've learned through running the co-op and talking to our customers, there's a lot of confusions about just what espresso is. Some people think espresso is a bean. And even though espresso beans are marketed as espresso beans, it's really not a bean. Some people think it's a blend of beans, an espresso blend. And actually, we market espresso blend here at the co-op. We have our Rosebud espresso from Atlas Coffee, but it's really not a blend either. And it's not even a roast profile, light or dark, although light or dark is an espresso preference in different places, around the world, and even in the United States. In the United States, espresso coffee is a lighter roast on the East Coast, and because of the Starbucks influence, it's a much darker roast on the West Coast. But what espresso really is a process of brewing coffee. And how the whole thing got started is really, really interesting. Espresso wasn't started to build, to make a new quality drink. Espresso was actually something that was developed in Europe in the early 20th century to make coffee faster. They actually called it a cafe espresso, which is really, the process of making coffee faster. So as the coffee craze traveled across Europe in the early 1900s, very early at the turn of the century, inventors started working on ways to make coffee faster because it took like 5 minutes to make a coffee drink. And it just didn't make it fast enough for people. People didn't want to wait for 5 minutes for their coffee. Actually, people were in as much of a hurry in Europe back at the turn of that century as they are today. So the inventors went to work and they came up with a bunch of new machines that they tried. And the actual first machine that really took off was an improved patent from an earlier 1880 patent that didn't actually get manufactured. And a guy named Luigi Barraza came up with a design, and it looks much like, we'll have a picture of it here, looks much like the espresso machines that you would think of in early Europe in the movies, those really cool, ornate machines. And he actually took this machine to the Milan Fair in 1906. And that's really where the espresso machine was debuted. And we have a photo of his booth here that he had at the Milan Fair, and you can see all of those cups set up all the way around. And he was trying to impress people with how fast they could make a coffee. It was just a few seconds. In fact, they were advertising they could make thousands of cups of coffee an hour, which was a big thing. It was a way to really speed up a process. Everybody was drinking coffee, so it went much faster. Now, Barraza, he was an inventor, but he didn't have the capital and the marketing know-how really to take it to market. So before the fair, he teamed up with a guy who made other drinks and things and had manufacturing capacity. So he teamed up with Pavani, and Pavani actually manufactured the first espresso machines in Milan. We have a picture of it here. Really beautiful machine. And for the next decade or so, he really kind of owned that market, but it was really in Italy, really something that traveled through Italy. So yes, the espresso machine was born in Italy. If we fast forward to World War II, the coffee machine changed again, and really it really evolved into what we know now as an espresso machine. The early machines only had about 1.5 to 2 atmospheres of pressure to force that hot water and steam through the coffee. So it didn't make a drink as quickly as the new ones. So after World War II, the inventors came up with a new machine that had 8 to 10 atmospheres of pressure. And what that did is it forced that coffee through the pod so fast that it actually made crema on top of the coffee. That was the first appearance of crema. The first patrons who actually tried the coffee out of the machine wanted to know what that sludge was floating around the top of their coffee. And they didn't want it in there. They were trying to take it out. They were doing all kinds of things to take it out. But the inventors told them that that was really a sign of quality. So they really worked that marketing thing in. And now people will do anything to boost the crema on their coffee. So that's really how the espresso thing got started. Since World War II, hundreds of machines have come out with all kinds of new ways to make espresso. So what this means to our roasters is, don't worry, if you want to market an espresso blend, that's fine, that's how it gets marketed. If you want to market an espresso bean, that's fine how it gets marketed. and there isn't a special grind. So it's really whatever you make it. From a coffee standpoint, you can make espresso out of absolutely any type of coffee. People even mix in 10 to 15% Robusta coffee to boost the crema. So that's the scoop on espresso.